Okay, so that last video cut out on us, so I'm going to re-record over it real quick. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at the now you tries leading up to example 10 and 11. So this last video is going to focus on simplifying expressions with variables and adding and subtracting expressions with variables. If you haven't had a chance to finish the now you tries up to 27, you'll have a chance to do that before the next time we meet. But we're going to focus now on the last video, example 10 and 11. I already started working on letter L, which is separating. We have here the square root of 9x squared. We're separating our internal inside values into two separate parts. The square root of 9 we know is 3. We're taking the square root of something that's squared, so we know that these two operations cancel out, so I'm left with x. So letter L should be 3x. In letter M, I'm going to do the same thing that I did over in letter L. I'm going to use my properties to separate my inside terms. So since I'm raising this whole parentheses, everything inside of it, to the 1/2 power, I can separate these guys as my term, which is 4. 4 is being raised to the 1/2 power times y to the 6th is also being raised to the 1/2 power. So I can distribute my 1/2 to both of my terms inside my letter, inside my parentheses for my letter M. 4 to the 1/2 power we know is the same thing as the square root of 4, which we know is 2. Since I'm taking a power and raising it to the next power, I can write this as a fraction. I can multiply these exponents together since I'm dealing with the same base here. 6 times 1 is 6, 1 times 2 is 2. So this becomes 2y, and this breaks down to 3. So I get 2y to the 3rd power for letter M. In letter N, I'm taking the cube root of x cubed over y squared, or y to the 6th power. Okay, so in order to be able to look at this, there's a couple things I want to do. The first is I want to separate both of these terms as a separate numerator and separate denominator. I'm using my properties again. So I'm going to write this as the cube root of x cubed over the cube root of y to the 6th power. Okay, so in order for me to be able to pull out, or for us to be able to pull out an x, right, I have to have 3 of them that match inside. So in this case, my index 3 and my inside exponent 3, they match, so they all cancel out, so I'm left with x up top. So down here I'm going to do something before I just get my answer. I'm going to see if I can rewrite y to the 6th power so I have the exponent of 3 that matches with my index. And since I know my exponent here is 6, this is the same thing as y squared being raised to the 3rd power. Okay? Because 2 times 3 gives me 6. So it's using my properties again. The reason I want my exponent on the outside and my index to match is because they cancel out. And when they cancel out, we also cancel out my radical symbol. So I'm left with y squared left over, and I get x over y squared as my answer for letter N. Lastly, for example 10, letter O, I'm having a lot of separate things going on here. I've got multiplication, I've got division, I've got negative exponents, so I have a lot of properties that are happening in letter O. So we're going to go through and we're going to separate them to make this a little bit easier. And the way I'm going to separate them is I'm going to have my constants in a separate column, my A's in a separate column, and my C's in a separate column. And because I have no constant that's labeled in my denominator, I know that I can put 1 down there as a placeholder. So if I separate this, I have 3 over 1. I'm separating my constants, my A's, and my C. So I have 1, 2, 3 columns I should be getting. And they're all attached through multiplication. So I get A to the 3/2 up top, A below, times my C column has my C up top, and my C to the -2 down below. Okay, so 3 over 1 obviously just gives me 3. Up top, if I'm looking at dividing same base properties, I have to rewrite my exponent down below so that it matches my denominator of my exponent up above. Okay, so if I have 3/2, I want to rewrite this 1, this invisible 1, to be a fraction that has 2 in the denominator. So I can rewrite this as 2 over 2 and a to the 3 halves minus the 2 halves gives me a to the 1/2 power. Since I'm not dealing with a fraction over here, I don't have to worry about matching my denominators for my fraction up above, so I can just place my 1 up top. So again, same base of my exponents, which is c. 1 minus a negative 2 means I'm going to be 1 minus a negative 2 means I'm going to be working on flipping those negatives to positives, so it's the same thing as 1 plus 2, so I get c to the 3rd power. If I put all of them together, my answer should be 3a to the 1/2, c to the 3rd, and that can be my final answer because I have no negative exponents. Lastly, example 11. We're going to review a couple things about adding, subtracting expressions with variables. We want to simplify the expression here, so we're not solving, we're trying to get it again as small as we possibly can. So just like our like rationals that we talked about before, since square root of x and square root of x are the exact same, 4 minus 3 gives me 1, square root of x goes on the end. This is the same thing as square root of x. That 1 is kind of invisible, so I can write them either way. So my answer is square root of x for letter P. Last but not least, letter Q. In this case, all my variables happen to match up. xy to the 1/4 and xy to the 1/4 are exactly the same. So I can deal with adding my outside numbers. 5 plus 2 gives me 7. And then I can add my xy to the 1/4 on the end. And that's my final answer for letter Q. At this point, you have now you tries 28 through 34 left over. So at this time, you can work on those problems. And you can also go back and work on any of the now you tries that we haven't finished up to this point. And the next time we get together for class, we'll go over numbers 1 through 34 together and make sure that we're all on the same page. And once we have a chance to do that, the answer keys to all of these now you tries will also be posted on Blackboard for you to check and always refer back to as we continue on through Unit 3.